Welcome to the Scholar Opener video. If you are playing in a pug or are a beginner player, you should stick to the standard opener as the advanced one requires perfect GCD uptime on top of many other things which I'll get into later, and requires your team to be on top of things. The advanced opener should only be taken into consideration if you are in a group of consistent players and are trying to optimize to the fullest. That being said, let's begin. Doing the standard opener involves using Ruin 2 3rd GCD to swiftcast Broil to land it and the following energy drain under Chain Stratagem. You get 5 energy drains under Potion and 4 in raid buffs using this opener. Dissipating in the opener will not always be optimal depending on fight specific mechanics. If you are not comfortable losing your fairy for 30 seconds in the opener, don't dissipate until you are. Remember that you're only going to do more harm than good if you try to use dissipation in the opener or try dumping all your Aether Flow in the opener when you aren't comfortable doing so. This is because Scholar's damage is tied directly to its healing, so if you get rid of half your toolkit in the opener, you might struggle if something happens during the period of downtime between Aether Flows. Your opener will only account for a small fraction of your DPS, and most of your actual damage will come from proper slide casting, pre-positioning, and the act of always casting. When talking about the advanced opener, there's 2 different routes you can take depending if you have a ninja or not. If you have a ninja, you'll do what I call the early bio refresh, which is refreshing biolysis at 11 seconds on your 9th GCD. I'll demonstrate the early bio refresh with a ninja first. The theory behind it is you're losing an extra tick, but it will be made up very quickly assuming you have stacked raid buffs. The potential for this opener with a ninja is high and scales very fast if you have multiple forms of raid buffs. So this advanced opener is pretty complicated to talk about, but I'll try explaining this to the best of my abilities. The idea behind the opener is clipping your dot early to line it up with raid buffs with each reapplication during these periods. Because every raid buff in this game is in intervals of 60 seconds aside from Brotherhood, it lines up perfectly with our 30-second dot. You're taking a damage loss in your opener for a damage gain later on down the line. Now the complexity of this opener comes from the strict nature of it. Having the ability to adjust your rotation based on how many raid buffs you have in your composition, having the right spell speed and ping to pull it off, and having perfect uptime so your GCD doesn't get misaligned. If you misalign your dot from raid buffs or refresh your dot too early or too late, the chances are you'll be at a damage negative for the rest of the fight and you already messed up. If you also try to attempt this rotation and don't have a certain amount of raid buffs to make up for the loss, or do this opener when there's downtime before you outvalue the standard one, it's a loss. It requires keen knowledge of the fight and your job, and to trust in your team to put up raid buffs on time. When you watch this rotation, you can see how strict the timing is on some of the dot reapplications. To pull this off, you need a 2.43 GCD at the minimum, 2.40/2.41 is ideal though. You may be able to pull it off at a slower GCD, but it won't be as consistent. You also need a partially raid buff heavy comp with ideally 3 different forms of raid buffs, 2 at the minimum. The more raid buffs you have, the faster you'll make up for your losses. To reiterate, this is a very tight rotation and should only be attempted at the highest levels of play under the right conditions. There are other circumstances that affect this rotation, one of them also being kill time. If a fight ends in intervals of 30 seconds, then the standard opener most likely wins as you'd get more dot uptime. This of course isn't always the case depending on the actual phase end time. Think of it more like this: let's say a fight ended at 5 minutes, you wouldn't put up your dot again after it falls off at 450, so you're losing 180 potency there. So you would need to be 180 potency ahead in dot gains to make it worth using a bio clip in the opener. If you do your rotation correctly, it should look something like this. The late bio refresh variant has pretty much the same fundamentals as the early bio opener, except you're using Biolysis 10th GCD instead of 9th. There's a small gain when doing this, and that's because you're getting your last broil under most raid buffs. When you do the early bio opener, your 10th GCD, which is broil, doesn't catch chain, battle voice, and potentially divination and battle litany depending on when they are used. But when you do the late bio opener, your 10th GCD does catch these buffs, and that's because your 10th GCD is Biolysis, which is instant cast and is catching them before they fall off. TLDR is you're getting 6 GCDs under chain and 8 GCDs under battle voice, litany, and other potential raid buffs doing the early bio opener, and 7 GCDs under chain and 9 GCDs under battle voice, litany, and other potential raid buffs doing the late bio opener. Both openers have their gains. Early bio is useful with a ninja or when you have to do chain stratagem earlier in your GCD, and late bio is useful when you don't have a ninja and use chain stratagem in the later half of your GCD. Where you put chain stratagem will be dependent on your party composition, as you should use it when it gets the most value. Because there are so many different raid comps, I'm not going to go through every single one, but I'll go over a few comps, starting with the composition of Dragoon and Bard. With a Dragoon and Bard, it'll take 3 minutes and 50 seconds of full uptime to recoup your losses. Now let's add Astrologian into the mix. So now we have Litany, Voice, and Divination. With these buffs, it pushes the potency gain over the threshold to where it's a gain at 2 minutes and 50 seconds of full uptime. Now here's one with Ninja only. As talked about earlier, you can see how fast it scales, and this is just by itself. With only a Ninja, it'll take 3 minutes and 50 seconds of full uptime. But let's add a Dragoon and Dancer alongside that Ninja and see how it comes out. With the addition of those two buffs combined with Trick Attack, your dot starts scaling exponentially, taking only 2 minutes and 50 seconds of full uptime to break even. Now for fun, we'll see how fast the dot scales using a buff comp of Dragoon, Dancer, Ninja, Summoner, and Astrologian. With this many raid buffs, we can really see how fast it scales, only taking 1 minute and 50 seconds to break even. Using this information, we can come to the conclusion that this opener and rotation only works on the fights Eden 2 Savage and Eden 4 Savage. However, this opener can also be used as a re-opener during the fight, which means it can work on Eden 3 Savage after the second Maelstrom and potentially Eden 1 Savage after the ad phase if it lives long enough. This of course depends on your party composition and does not account for chain stratagem. Eventually we should have a working Excel sheet you can plug your composition into, and it'll tell you how many reapplications you'll need to recoup your losses. If you're interested in fight-specific optimization, I'll be uploading videos as well as adding stuff to the Balanced Discord, so be sure to check it out. The Scholar opener doesn't just start when the boss is pulled, it starts when the countdown begins. There are a few interesting things you can do pre-pull, like using Recitation to put an XCOG onto the tank. Using Recitation enables you the use of XCOG and Indom without having any Aetherflow. While it's useless for Indom pre-pull, being able to have a free crit XCOG at the start of the fight without using one of your weave slots is really good. You can also use Adblow Deploy pre-pull if there's damage within 25 seconds at the start of the fight. I say 25 because after 5 seconds you really don't have time to do anything since you need to use your potion and precast a broil. There's one more thing you can do pre-pull, and that's summoning your Seraph. Summoning your Seraph puts it on cooldown earlier and saves you a weave slot or two, due to it allowing you the use of Consolation pre-pull. If you do Seraph pre-pull, try to do it later than earlier so you get the most Seraphic Veils out of it. The last thing I have to say is when playing with pugs, be more reservative with your Aetherflow. Don't blow them all on energy drain because your party may make mistakes or your co-healer may be less experienced. Scholar heals are some of the strongest in the game, and not utilizing your healing toolkit is very bad. Thank you guys for watching, and peace out!